Seinfeld premiered in 1989 and quickly became one of the most influential sitcoms ever created. What started as a strange little show about everyday annoyances soon turned into a global comedy phenomenon. Millions of viewers followed the lives of four friends in New York, arguing about parking spaces, bad dates, and the tiny frustrations of daily life. But behind the humor and unforgettable characters, the real lives of the actors were sometimes far more dramatic than anything written in the show. One would become one of the richest comedians in history. One would rise to become an award-winning television legend. One beloved sitcom father would experience a surprising career revival decades later. And one star would face a shocking controversy that nearly ended everything. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, which Seinfeld character are you most like? Jerry with his calm observations, George constantly panicking about life, Elaine with her sharp sarcasm, or Kramer bursting through the door with chaotic energy? And what scene from the show still makes you laugh every time you watch it? Seinfeld first aired on NBC in 1989 and ran for 9 seasons until its finale in 1998. Created by Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, the series quickly became known as the show about nothing. Instead of dramatic storylines or emotional life lessons, it focused on the strange frustrations of everyday life. Waiting endlessly for a table at a restaurant, arguing over the perfect parking space, getting completely lost in a massive parking garage. These small problems somehow turned into comedy gold. The show blended Jerry's stand-up comedy with the chaotic lives of four friends living in New York City. Jerry's apartment became one of the most recognizable locations in television history, with Kramer constantly bursting through the door uninvited, and George venting about his latest disaster. What made the show truly unique was that the characters were rarely heroes. They were selfish, petty, and often completely ridiculous. Yet audiences loved them because those flaws felt surprisingly real. Over time, Seinfeld grew into one of the most successful sitcoms ever created, and decades later, its influence on comedy can still be seen everywhere. Jerry Seinfeld was already building a reputation as a rising comedian long before Seinfeld ever appeared on television. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, he worked the stand-up comedy circuit in New York, slowly developing the observational style that would eventually make him famous. His humor focused on the small frustrations of everyday life, the tiny details most people overlook, but instantly recognize once someone points them out. Appearances on major television programs like The Tonight Show helped introduce his comedy to a national audience and established him as one of the most promising stand-up performers of his generation. Everything changed when Jerry teamed up with fellow comedian and writer Larry David. Together, they developed an unusual idea for a sitcom that ignored most of the traditional rules of television storytelling. Instead of dramatic plots or emotional lessons, the show would focus on the awkward situations and minor irritations people experience every day. When Seinfeld premiered in 1989, few expected it to become a cultural phenomenon. Yet over 9 seasons, the show grew into one of the most successful sitcoms ever created. By the time the series ended in 1998, Seinfeld was one of the biggest shows on television. Syndication deals soon turned it into an entertainment empire. The series continues to generate enormous revenue through reruns and streaming platforms, making Jerry Seinfeld one of the richest comedians in history. Unlike many television stars who struggle after a hit show ends, Jerry returned to his roots in stand-up comedy. He continued touring internationally and later created the popular series Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, where he combines conversations with fellow comedians and his love of classic cars. Decades after Seinfeld first aired, Jerry Seinfeld remains one of the most successful and respected comedians in the world. Wayne Knight may not have been one of the 4 central characters on Seinfeld, but his role as Newman became one of the most memorable parts of the entire series. As Jerry's scheming rival and the building's mysterious mailman, Newman brought a mischievous energy that instantly elevated every scene he appeared in. Even though he had limited screen time, Wayne Knight consistently managed to steal the spotlight with his dramatic delivery and playful villain-like presence. Before joining Seinfeld, Knight had already begun building a steady career in Hollywood as a character actor. His expressive face and distinctive voice made him a natural fit for supporting roles that audiences instantly remembered. During the height of Seinfeld's popularity in the 1990s, he was also appearing in several major films. One of his most recognizable movie roles came in the blockbuster Jurassic Park, where he played the nervous computer programmer Dennis Nedry. His chaotic attempt to sabotage the park became one of the most memorable moments in the film. Around the same time, he also appeared in the basketball comedy Space Jam, further cementing his presence in pop culture during the decade. Beyond live-action roles, Wayne Knight also built an impressive career in voice acting. His unique voice made him a perfect choice for animated characters, and he worked across numerous animated television shows and films. Over time, his combination of memorable performances turned him into one of the most recognizable character actors of the 1990s. And for many Seinfeld fans, he will always be remembered as the one neighbor who could instantly irritate Jerry with just a single greeting. "Hello, Jerry." Julia Louis-Dreyfus brought one of the most unforgettable characters in sitcom history to life when she stepped into the role of Elaine Bennis. But long before Seinfeld made her a television icon, she had already been building her career in comedy. While studying at Northwestern University, she joined a Chicago improv group that eventually opened the door to national television. In the early 1980s, she became one of the youngest performers ever hired for Saturday Night Live. Although her time on the show was relatively brief, the experience helped sharpen the comedic timing that would later define her career. When Seinfeld premiered in 1989, Elaine was introduced as Jerry's ex-girlfriend and close friend. But it didn't take long for the character to become one of the most important parts of the series. Elaine was confident, sarcastic, and fiercely independent. At a time when many sitcoms still portrayed female characters in traditional roles, Elaine felt refreshingly modern. Julia Louis-Dreyfus gave the character a unique blend of intelligence, awkward charm, and explosive comedic energy. Moments like Elaine's famously awkward dance or her dramatic workplace frustrations quickly became some of the most memorable scenes in the entire show. After Seinfeld ended in 1998, many people wondered whether any of the cast members could escape the shadow of such a massive hit. Julia Louis-Dreyfus eventually did exactly that. Years later, she returned to television with the political comedy Veep, playing the ambitious and hilariously ruthless Selina Meyer. Her performance earned widespread praise and a historic number of Emmy Awards, making her one of the most decorated actresses in television history. In 2017, her life took an unexpected and frightening turn when she publicly revealed she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. Instead of hiding from the news, she chose to speak openly about her battle, sharing updates with honesty and humor. Fans around the world supported her through treatment, and after months of chemotherapy and recovery, she announced that she was cancer-free. The experience only deepened the admiration people already had for her resilience. Today, Julia Louis-Dreyfus remains one of the most respected and beloved comedic actresses in television. Jason Alexander created one of the most hilariously relatable characters ever seen on television with the role of George Costanza. Nervous, insecure, endlessly frustrated, and often making terrible decisions, George seemed to represent the worst impulses of everyday human behavior. Yet audiences loved him because beneath all the chaos, he felt painfully real. Much of that realism came from the fact that George was heavily inspired by one of the show's creators, Larry David. Many of the characters' most outrageous situations were drawn directly from David's real-life experiences. Before finding television fame, Jason Alexander had already built an impressive career on the stage. A talented performer with strong musical and comedic abilities, he found success on Broadway and even won a Tony Award for his performance in Jerome Robbins's Broadway. His theatrical background gave him a remarkable sense of timing and physical expression, which translated perfectly into the fast-paced humor of Seinfeld. During the show's 9-season run, George Costanza became one of the funniest and most memorable characters in sitcom history. Whether he was desperately trying to impress someone, arguing with his parents, or completely unraveling over life's smallest problems, Jason Alexander delivered each moment with incredible comedic intensity. However, after Seinfeld ended, Alexander faced a challenge that many actors from iconic sitcoms encounter. The character of George Costanza had become so famous that audiences struggled to see him as anyone else. Despite appearing in films, television shows, and numerous guest roles, the shadow of George often followed him. Rather than trying to escape it completely, Alexander continued expanding his career in different directions. He returned to theater, worked extensively in voice acting, and appeared in a variety of television productions. Over time, he built a reputation as a versatile performer with decades of experience across stage, animation, and television. And even today, George Costanza remains one of the funniest and most painfully relatable characters ever created in sitcom history. Estelle Harris delivered one of the loudest and most unforgettable performances in the entire Seinfeld universe as Estelle Costanza, George's constantly outraged mother. Every time she appeared on screen, the volume and energy of the scene seemed to double. With her sharp voice, dramatic reactions, and relentless arguments with her husband Frank, Estelle Costanza became one of the most chaotic and hilarious parents in sitcom history. What makes her story even more remarkable is that Estelle Harris did not begin acting early in life. For many years, she focused on raising her family before deciding to seriously pursue a career in entertainment. She began acting in her 40s, appearing in small television roles and commercials. But her powerful voice and exaggerated comedic style quickly made her stand out. When she joined Seinfeld in the early 1990s, her performance instantly became a fan favorite. The explosive shouting matches between Estelle and Frank Costanza created some of the funniest family moments in the series and helped explain why George was always so nervous and frustrated. Outside of Seinfeld, Harris also built a successful career in voice acting. Her distinctive voice made her a perfect fit for animated characters, and one of her most famous roles came in the Toy Story franchise, where she voiced Mrs. Potato Head. The character introduced her to a whole new generation of viewers. Estelle Harris continued performing well into her later years. In 2022, she passed away at the age of 93, leaving behind a legacy of unforgettable comedic performances. For Seinfeld fans, her voice and explosive energy remain one of the most iconic parts of the show. Jerry Stiller brought a completely different kind of chaos to Seinfeld as Frank Costanza, George's equally explosive father. With his unpredictable temper, wild expressions, and intense delivery, Frank quickly became one of the most memorable sitcom fathers ever created. But Jerry Stiller's comedy career began decades before Seinfeld. In the 1960s and 1970s, he became famous as one half of the comedy duo Stiller and Meara, alongside his wife Ann Meara. The pair appeared frequently on television variety shows and built a strong reputation as one of the most popular comedy teams of their time. By the time Seinfeld arrived in the 1990s, however, Stiller's career had slowed down. Then, in his late 60s, he stepped into the role of Frank Costanza and delivered a performance that completely revived his career. His explosive arguments with Estelle and his constant frustration with George created some of the most memorable scenes in the series. One moment in particular became legendary among fans. During a stressful situation, Frank repeatedly shouted the phrase, "Serenity now," in an attempt to calm himself down. Instead, the phrase quickly turned into one of the most famous catchphrases in Seinfeld history. Off-screen, Jerry Stiller shared a special connection with another major Hollywood star, his son, Ben Stiller. Ben would go on to become one of the most successful comedic actors and directors of his generation, often crediting his parents for inspiring his career in entertainment. Jerry Stiller continued acting for many years after Seinfeld ended. In 2020, he passed away at the age of 92, and tributes from fans and fellow actors quickly flooded social media. Through the unforgettable character of Frank Costanza, Jerry Stiller left behind a comedic legacy that continues to make audiences laugh decades later. Michael Richards created one of the most unforgettable characters in television history, with the role of Cosmo Kramer. From the moment he first burst through Jerry's apartment door with his wild hair and unpredictable energy, audiences knew they were watching something completely unique. Kramer wasn't just another sitcom neighbor. He was a whirlwind of chaos, constantly arriving with strange ideas, bizarre business schemes, and a confidence that somehow carried him through the most ridiculous situations. What made the character so memorable was Richards' extraordinary physical comedy. While many sitcom actors relied mainly on dialogue, he used his entire body to create humor. His awkward entrances, exaggerated reactions, sudden falls, and perfectly timed movements made even the simplest moments hilarious. Whether Kramer was sliding across the apartment floor, nervously reacting to one of his own bad ideas, or turning a normal situation into a disaster, Richards brought a level of energy that few actors could match. Critics and audiences quickly recognized how special the performance was. During the run of Seinfeld, Michael Richards won multiple Emmy Awards for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. His portrayal of Kramer helped define the identity of the show and turned the character into one of the most recognizable figures in sitcom history. However, after Seinfeld ended in 1998, Richards struggled to find another role that could match the enormous success of Kramer. While other cast members moved on to new projects, he found it difficult to escape the shadow of the character that had made him famous. Then in 2006, his career took a dramatic and unexpected turn. During a stand-up performance at a comedy club in Los Angeles, Richards became involved in a heated exchange with several audience members. In the middle of the confrontation, he made a series of racially offensive remarks that were captured on video and quickly spread across the internet. The backlash was immediate and intense. Fans who had loved Kramer for years were shocked by what they saw. The incident dominated headlines and severely damaged Richards' reputation. Soon after, he issued a public apology and appeared on television to express deep regret for his words. He admitted that the outburst had come from anger and frustration, and acknowledged the harm it had caused. Despite the apology, the controversy had a lasting impact on his career. Opportunities in Hollywood became rare, and for many years, Richards stepped almost completely away from the spotlight. The silence that followed stood in stark contrast to the enormous fame he had once enjoyed during the height of Seinfeld. In later interviews, Richards began reflecting more openly on the incident and the long period of self-examination that followed. He spoke about the personal growth that came from confronting his mistakes and the lessons he learned from that difficult chapter in his life. Today, Cosmo Kramer remains one of the most iconic characters ever created for television comedy. His wild entrances, unpredictable behavior, and unforgettable physical humor helped define an entire era of sitcom history. And while Michael Richards' story includes both extraordinary success and serious controversy, his performance on Seinfeld remains one of the most memorable in television history. Which Seinfeld moment still makes you laugh the most? Is it Kramer bursting through Jerry's door? George yelling, "Serenity now," in frustration? Or Elaine's unforgettable dance? Tell us your favorite scene in the comments. Decades after Seinfeld ended, the lives of the cast have taken very different paths. What began as a small group of comedians filming a quirky sitcom in New York eventually turned them into television legends. Some members of the cast went on to build even bigger careers in Hollywood, earning awards and creating new iconic roles. Others faced unexpected challenges and controversies that changed the direction of their lives. And sadly, some of the beloved actors who helped bring the show to life are no longer with us today. Yet the magic of Seinfeld continues to live on. New generations of viewers still discover the show and laugh at the same awkward situations and sarcastic conversations that made it famous. For a series that proudly called itself a show about nothing, Seinfeld somehow became one of the most influential sitcoms ever made. Tell us your favorite Seinfeld character and the episode you remember the most. And subscribe for more nostalgic stories about classic TV stars and where they are today.